It was amidst all the 1990s glory of Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer shaking their thing on Twitter and the sort of humorous nature of what on earth Microsoft would do with TikTok. I was also drawn to your own tweets about this. Give us your thoughts, first and foremost, about how on earth you separate TikTok US from the rest of TikTok.
Well, first of all, I guess the part of the story that doesn't totally make sense is that TikTok operates essentially everywhere in the world except for China. So it's unclear why the White House would care about the TikTok operations outside of China. Remember, while it's based around ByteDance and was built on Douyin, which is a Chinese version of TikTok, TikTok operates all but in China. So it's not clear why we're just talking about TikTok US being separated versus sort of everything in TikTok being separated from ByteDance and its ownership back in China. So that, to me, is the really confusing element. To be honest, though, I don't really know how you separate TikTok. If you're just talking to the U.S. business, separating that from everything else when all of the technology leverages the global kind of business of TikTok would seem very challenging to do that. I mean, there are, lots of companies that have tried to replicate the TikTok functionality. In fact, there's companies like Triller and Dubsmash that predate TikTok, and of course Musical.ly, which was the predecessor before TikTok bought it. None of those have caught on, and I think a lot of it's because of the underlying technology and AI. That's really the magic behind TikTok, and how you separate that, I have absolutely no idea.
Well, that's the part I'm interested in here, Rich, because obviously this is a play for that technology, which a lot of folks have said is kind of a heads and shoulders above the rest here. The thread here that the Trump administration and a lot of folks in Congress seem to be pointing to is that at some point on the back end of this, you have the Chinese government and their ability to, in some way or another, to access the data. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But is there a way that you can create a separate company where that thread to the Chinese government is assured to not exist?
I mean, the answer, first of all, there's a lot of apps that have connections to China that you use every day. Games that are, owned by Chinese companies that you play. I mean, it's unclear what makes this one being singled out overall. But leave that aside. I think the larger question is, no matter what President Trump or the White House wants, we don't even know if they're going to be in the White House in 90-plus days. Obviously, we've got an election, and it's unclear that Joe Biden shares the same view of China and certainly of TikTok that President Trump does. And so we may be putting sort of cart before horse here in terms of what happens. I would say that, look, we've learned a lot over the last few years in this country in terms of applications and their power. Obviously, we saw the big tech hearings earlier this week that I'm sure Bloomberg covered ad nauseum. The reality is everything you do is sort of being tracked and understood. It's not clear what the behavior or what the data that TikTok or ByteDance is quote unquote capturing that is so problematic or worrisome. I think it's going to be very challenging to get rid of TikTok or shut it down. Separating it and making it more of a U.S. company, certainly possible, certainly not easy, but certainly I'm sure possible.
Rich, it's interesting. Microsoft went through its own antitrust issues 2 decades ago. They were one of the only big media companies, big tech companies, not in front of the congressional hearings this week. They have $136 billion of cash on their books. What is a Microsoft potential acquisition of a TikTok-based U.S. operations mean for Microsoft?
Look, I don't know Microsoft well enough from a stock standpoint. It's not where my focus is on the software side. But I will say from a consumer-facing, if you leave off sort of Xbox, a lot of what Microsoft has done hasn't worked out very well. I mean, Skype certainly has been, no one's using Skype. Everyone's using Zoom during the pandemic. If you look at Mixer, which recently got, basically sold off, which was their competitor to Twitch, you look at Minecraft, which is amazing, but certainly I don't think Microsoft has meaningfully innovated on it. And LinkedIn, to me, looks like nothing's really happened to it since they bought it. And so Microsoft has not exactly been awesome at consumer-facing mobile tech. And so I'm not sure Microsoft, I can see why Microsoft wants to buy it. It may not be so exciting if Microsoft buys it. What it means for TikTok may not be great given Microsoft's history with, kind of consumer-facing internet apps.
Snap bounced very briefly on it. Does this help anyone, Rich?
Well, there's a big difference between if you were to tell me TikTok's being shut down were severely hobbled in the U.S., that would obviously be very good, just competitively for Snap and Facebook and Twitter. Obviously it's a war for consumer time, and so there's an app that's taking a lot of people's time, and it's not just teens. The growth in 25 plus on TikTok is enormous, and so it would help everybody in the consumer mobile internet sphere if TikTok didn't exist or was hobbled. But
Rich,
just simply being sold to a U.S. company may not matter very much because it's just different ownership versus the same app.